Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. And before we get back to our series on HUD in regards to Section 8, we're going to go through, of course, the single disclaimer and the trigger warnings. But first, anybody else tired of living through historical moments? Like, for real. Like, ever since, like, a few years ago, I feel like every day I aged by 100 years. We've literally all become the meme of the guy that's holding, like, a cigarette between every single finger with his hand on his forehead. Like, every one of us. Because we got World War III trending again. I'm going to tell you why I'm not stressed out about it, for a couple of reasons. One of them very much is cemented in the fact that I was born in and a part of one of the most nihilist of generations that I can even remember. Where literally all of us have been expecting World War III and nuclear war every single day since when we started to attend elementary school. Because we've had it drilled into our heads. We are the last generation of folks that remember having bomb drills. Literal bomb drills where they hit the button and you are supposed to go underneath your desk and cover your head with your hands as though that somehow this is going to protect us from a nuclear blast. So that part's going to come into it. And then there is the history nerd in me that's been studying ancient, medieval, Renaissance, and just within the last couple of decades, the turning of the century type of history, starting from about around the age of 10. We'll start with the nihilist point of view. As previously stated, folks from my particular generation have been told that nuclear war was inevitable and we were going to die at any time, since as far back as I can possibly remember. And it wasn't just parents. It was teachers, older folk out wandering around, going to grocery stores, talking about stuff. You would hear it if you ever hang out with your parents when they're working and they're taking a smoke break, because back then you still had folks that could go and smoke under, shelter, as opposed to everybody has to go outside. And yeah, we were the last generation taught the bomb drills. We've been told that the world was going to die in nuclear Armageddon since we could walk, really. So, growing up with that type of nihilistic viewpoint, you could A, understand all the insane risk-taking that we all engaged in. It came from a nihilist point of, if it's gonna happen, I want to get some living done first. No matter how outrageous what that living was going to look like. So yeah, it's not shocking. At this point, it's just old. Because I've heard it so many times. I mean, Reagan was going to cause it. George H.W. Bush was going to cause it. Then Clinton and Bosnia and Waco, that was going to cause it. Then it was George W. Bush. And yeah, my whole life. So, As my wise woman, my mom has told me more than once, it's the same thing in regards to the fact that we live out in Tornado Alley out here. If it is my time, it is my time. And should it become my time, there's not going to be a goddamn thing I can possibly do to be able to stop it. So, to live my life in fear of an inevitable end does not do me or anybody else any good. You just gotta go out there and live as best you can. Try not to be dicks to one another. If you have faith, I have faith. Just saying. Faith. I got Saint Benedict, Saint Augustine, and Saint Monica on a chain here. Then you can pray, hope for the best, but don't live your life in a way that constantly has you checking over your shoulder, because then you can no longer face forward and embrace life. Number 2. As a student of history, the assessment goes a little bit like this. It will not be World War III until one of the world powers attacks another of the world powers. Now, what Ukraine has just managed to pull off is insane and impressive. But Ukraine, as resilient as they are not a world power. So, will Russia retaliate? You bet. I mean, it's Putin we're talking about here. But if you think that Putin, after all these years of scheming, backbiting, and being a sneaky, evil little you-know-what, you think he's just gonna suddenly, you know what, I'm gonna push the nuclear button. You have not been paying attention. I have no doubt that his response is gonna be devastating for Ukraine. I do not think that response is going to be him slamming his fist down on the red button. Putin is not any more of a fan of mutually assured destruction than any of the rest of us are. He's going to talk big talk. He's not going to start shooting nukes. He's going to put all his focus on Zelensky. Okay? I will infinitely be more concerned about World War III becoming a possibility if we do end up in a situation where one world power hits another world power. When that happens, folks, that will be the ball game. Okay? Now, saying that, being a part of that nihilistic generation, some of you look at us and ask, well, why don't you care? Because it doesn't matter if we care or not. If it's time for mutually assured destruction, whether we care or not, is not going to save anybody. So living under that nihilistic viewpoint, where we've been told World War III is coming, just about every single day of our lives, we keep silent, we keep our eye on the news. Most of us, since the time we were all in high school, have already planned in the back of our heads our bucket lists, A. And B, when the inevitable strikes, we try to factor in how fast we can run to grab alcohol and shouldn't before we get evaporated into atoms. You don't have to like it, but it is what it is. So running around, screaming your head off, being terrified of World War III, whether it is imminent or not, is not. Well, let me quote a song by the band Kansas. It's a particular line from Dust in the Wind that says, "And all your money won't another minute buy." I'd like to rephrase it. And all your worrying and your fussing about it, and the being scared and terrified is not gonna buy you a single minute more of life. We need to focus on stuff that is going on at home, especially when we are talking about an administration that is attacking HUD, attacking Medicaid, attacking Social Security, attacking supplemental security income, attacking food stamps, attacking Section 8. Now, these are a lot more immediate concerns that can cause immediate devastation that we should be keeping our focus on right now. Otherwise, while we are looking into a completely different conflict in countries far away from us, you're going to have these shady, evil you-know-whats sliding by a whole bunch of crap that we didn't catch because we were too busy being scared of everything. That's really all I got to say about it. I hate that I have to quote W, but for the love of God, people, don't live your lives in fear. It will happen or it won't. To be quite honest, whatever goes on, there's not really much that us here in the peanut gallery are going to be able to affect when it comes for more of those massive matters. Where we all tend to hold the power is in the small things. And in those small things, there is power. Because more and more small things add up. So, don't let the world news distract you from what's going on in our own country. If we want anything chance at all of being able to save this country, preserve at least a small part of its soul before it gets ripped out by these insane grifters that have taken over everything, then we can't afford to be distracted right now. Alright? Now, speaking of, to the disclaimers, the trigger warnings, and then we are going to continue on from where we were last time, going over the HUD and Section 8 situation. So, without further ado, folks, with anything that we cover in regards to this HUD series, you're going to see all links and hopefully helpful labels right there in the description box so that you know exactly what you're clicking on. So that if you should want to do a little bit more deep diving on your own in regards to the possible cuts to HUD that they're currently trying to ram down the Senate's throat right now, you are absolutely welcome to do so. Trigger warning. Now, folks, I do have this channel marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity. And some of the topics we cover, like the Judge Rothberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, are some pretty dark subjects. So if you have a child that is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously, parental supervision is advised. If you are gung-ho MAGA or gung-ho Democrat, more than likely, within the course of one of these series or one of my multiple any other videos, you are going to hear something that is going to offend you. If that is the case, stop the video. Please do not bother to comment. I've already had an ad hominem attack against my family, I will block you. I will remove your comment. I don't have time. If you still want to watch, that's great. If you would like to debate in a respectful manner, talking on the points of evidence instead of agenda or whatever QAnon crazy stuff on one side or crazy extreme left on the other. I like reasonable, intelligent debate based off evidence and fact at hand, not agenda setting and trying to influence one person towards one way or another. Yeah, I know. How autistic of me. Well, in my defense, yes. Alright, so, where we left off. The proposals outlined in this preliminary request are not only untenable, they are unconscionable, said the NLIH's interim president and CEO, Renee Willis. At a time of rapidly rising rents, increasing economic hardship, and a record number of people experiencing homelessness, the administration should be asking Congress to expand, not slash, federal investments in affording housing and homelessness assistance, and working with Congress and communities to ensure these vital resources are available to every household in need. Alright, I'm going to say something probably some left folks are not going to like, but we need to keep our eye on the prize. We can worry about expansion later. Right now, we need to put all our focus on saving what we have before that is ripped away from us first. I'm well aware of the situations across the board with all these programs, especially Medicaid and Social Security, but also still pretty well informed in regards to SNAP and Section 8 as well, just not as much as Supplemental Security Income, Social Security, and Medicaid. But that being said, we gotta keep it simple here. We gotta keep it simple. Do we need to change a lot of things in regards to funding, considering the fact that a lot of these programs have literally managed to hold on with absolutely almost no support, essentially by a Hail Mary and people sustaining themselves on energy drinks? Yeah, but let's save what we have first. So here are the steps. I'm thinking we need to save things as they are now. So no major cuts to Medicaid, no major cuts to Section 8, food stamps, or Social Security. We need to secure that victory. After we secure that victory, if that is indeed the case, we then need to essentially then chisel these programs, so to speak, in stone. Give them the staying power. So that it would literally take a massive world event in order to make any of them collapse. So we would save it, strengthen it, solidify it, then and only then should we then begin to start talking about expansion in regards to the programs, and also start going over many of the problems within the programs and funding and everything else. Right now, let's save what we have, solidify what we have, make what we have as unassailable as we absolutely possibly can at this point. Then we can start worrying about the other things. It's just my opinion. One thing at a time. okay? Anything else, and the GOP will spin it. It is obvious that they're even willing to buy QAnon insanity, as proved by this morning. Yeah. First things first, right? Okay. Now let me continue on. I'm aware I probably read this previously, but I've slept since then, so we're going to go over it again if we haven't already. So, overall, the skinny request would not only slash funding to vital affordable housing and homelessness assistance programs, it would redesign some of those programs entirely. The proposal would slash $26.72 billion from HUD's rental assistance programs, including housing choice vouchers, public housing, project-based rental assistance, PBRA, Section 202 housing for the elderly, and Section 811 housing for people with disabilities by combining them and block granting them into one program, state rental assistance block grants. Now, I explained to you during the last video why that is a very bad idea. It's because each of these programs have their own eligibility criteria. That is particularly important in regards to the housing for the elderly, housing for people with disabilities, people with mental health issues in particular. You can't just put them under just one state block and expect that that's going to work. Because then what will the criteria be with everything going underneath state rental assistance block grants? I can see that turning into a situation where you can have a whole bunch of people, more than already are, falling through the cracks and not being able to get access to that assistance. The way and the reason why they're separated as they are right now is because each of those programs are different, catering to the specific folks for which that little side waiver have been created for. For the Section 8 housing for people with disabilities, that definitely needs to have its own eligibility criteria. It is working in concert with Medicaid, with Social Security. It's places like Crowhaven. These are the transition age assisted living apartments that help individuals like myself get up and off of our feet, right? Okay. So if we remove the criteria that we use for Section 8 in regards to people with disabilities, us disabled folk getting into our assisted living apartments, as we get about around that age bracket, if they've completely removed all the criteria that had to do with the fact that we have developmental disabilities, and those assisted apartments are not just assisted apartments, they act as a center and base for the entirety of our overall treatment programs, that moving from high school supports into adult services and supports. It's got to be specific for a reason. It is working in concert, again, with supplemental security income, with Medicaid, right? So if you remove that, how many folks with disabilities are going to not be able to get Section 8 housing assistance because we want to put everything under a one-block nonsensical program that may not take any of the criteria from that Section 8 housing as a part of the overall new criteria that's going to handle this whole giant block. It's going to turn it in a massive, big, disorganized, confusing train wreck mess. Okay? Even with the housing choice vouchers, the public housing, each of these have separate criteria for a reason. For a reason. everybody come under the same criteria. You're gonna get people from each group that is now separated out now that fall through the cracks. And there's already a whole bunch of people falling through the cracks. Just from an organizational standpoint, this looks like an absolute horrific train wreck getting ready to happen. Let me go ahead and continue here. The proposal estimated to amount to an unprecedented 43% cut to HUD rental assistance, which would impose a 2-year time limit on receiving rental assistance for able-bodied adults and encourage states to provide funding to share in responsibility to ensure that similar levels of recipients can benefit from the block grant. Now, I know we went over that too because I'm remembering reading it now. And we've already gone over why it's a bad idea to have government officials be able to be the ones to tell you who's considered able-bodied or not. How about we let physicians do what physicians do, and doctors do what they do? Which means, let the doctor tell us in regards to able-bodied or not able-bodied. Are we even going to have a doctor as a part of an overall panel to determine what this new criteria for eligibility for a big block grant is going to be? Probably not. Probably not. Alright, so we are going to go ahead and go through the rest of this here. I think we stopped right after other affordable housing assistance programs. So here we go. The outline request proposes cutting homelessness assistance grants HAG by $532 million, consolidating the Continuum of Care program and housing opportunities for persons with AIDS HOPWA program into Emergency Solutions Grant program. Under the proposal, people experiencing at risk of homelessness would only be able to receive assistance for 2 years. We've also gone into why that's a bad idea, because you can't put time limit on an illness, especially not a chronic one. You see, Mother Nature doesn't care about politicians that set time limits. You know what I mean? Well, I can only get help for 2 years, so after that 2 years, I better be cured from it. I better be cured of the AIDS. Not how it works. That is nonsensical thinking. For the love of God. Alright, let me continue here. I'm actually going to go ahead and move on over to other affordable housing assistance programs. Just so we can kind of cut it a little short here. It's starting to get a little bit late. Okay, so USDA, in addition to the proposed cuts to the HUD programs outlined in the skinny request, the proposal foreshadows major cuts to rural housing programs under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA. While the outline promises an increase of $74 million for USDA's rental assistance program, it also slashes $721 million from the USDA's Rural Development Program, including eliminating programs that the administration argues are duplicative, too small to have a macroeconomic impact, costly to deliver, and limited demand available through the private sector or conceived as temporary, including single-family houses, direct loans, self-help housing grants, and rural housing vouchers. Why am I not surprised? But you can get that from the private sector. Nobody can actually afford the private sector. Have you seen the economy lately? Real talk here. Nobody can afford the private sector right now, especially in regards to things that could cause overall economic impact for those who do live out in rural areas, who have taken care of their small farms for most of their families' lives. Alright, L.I. Keep. The skinny request indicates the President will propose eliminating the Low-Income Heating and Energy Assistance Program, which helps households with low incomes afford their energy bills, including heating costs in the winter and cooling costs in the summer, weatherization, and minor energy-related home repairs. The administration argues the program is unnecessary because the states have policies preventing utility disconnection for low-income households, and the budget will instead support low-income individuals through energy dominance, lower prices, and an American First economic platform. These are individuals who have no idea what it's like to be a regular working poor American, okay? We don't have a middle class anymore. We have the billionaires, the millionaires, the working poor, and the poor. Middle class has been absolutely annihilated. Anybody who tells you any different is trying to sell you something. Alright? So, what do I mean by that? Well, let me tell you about the so-called that the states already have something in place for that. As you all know, I live in the GOP hellscape that is known as the state of Missouri. Right? Okay. Let's talk about utilities and disconnecting, shall we? Out here, if for any reason, even if it's for a natural disaster, you miss a utilities payment, first they send you a letter. If you're still on your down luck within a month, you know what they do? They shut off your power. They shut off your power. And the only way that you are able to get that power turned back on is to call them and pay the bill. If you can't pay the bill, you can call places like city utilities all you want to. But essentially what you get is, well, I'm sorry, and that sucks for you, but there's nothing you can do about it. We can't give you a mulligan. You either pay the bill or you don't get electricity. If you don't pay the bill, we will not turn your power back on. That's how it works, folks. It's been that way for years. There are so many times within the clause of Russian call center roulette where one project closed down, so you have to hurry off to another to get that one going, that in that interim time, I had to spend anywhere from 2 to 3 days without power because the new job has to have its check come through before I could pay the utility bill, and therefore you get to spend those wonderful 3 days without electricity when starting the new project at another call center. There is no supports. There is no, well, they can't disconnect you because. No, sir. No. You don't pay, they turn your power off. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Okay? There is nothing in place out here that would be able to stop that system. Any help in regards to help paying the energy bill usually comes through means of places like Salvation Army or Goodwill. And usually if you want their help, you have to have at least 2 to 3 different letters showing you in default with the utility company before they will help you. You've got a lot of individuals who have kids. It's one thing for me to be single and not have power for a few days. It is a completely different animal when you're talking about families who have kids. So any idea that the state can go ahead and pick up the slack, it's brain dead. That is a suggestion that comes from individuals who have no idea what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. They have no idea what it's like to be a member of the working poor. They have no idea what it's like that you are always one paycheck away from being homeless. And it shows. Because these people really do think that the states will pick up where the federal government leaves off. And they believe that there's this infrastructure that I can tell you does not exist. But it says so on paperwork. A lot of paperwork says a whole lot of shit. Doesn't make it true. Just saying. Alright, and then FEMA, of course, which we are noticing that now, especially out here. We get that, wow, horrific stream of tornadoes on April the 29th, right? Just tear through here, ripped a tree, like, right out by its roots, out by my own apartment here, right? FEMA has provided no help. Why? Because Trump told them not to. At least that is the gist of what I've been seeing from the news. I could be wrong, but yeah, there hasn't been a whole lot of FEMA activity out here. I've heard that they've been also having issues out in St. Louis too, getting some help for funding for the individuals who were already working poor, who now lost the only homes they've ever had. So this is what I mean when I say let's focus on saving what we have here first. If a world power attacks another world power directly instead of through proxy wars, then I will tell you to be concerned in regards of what's going on over there. But for right now, this is far more important. Its impact is immediate. It's not waiting for doom. It is the doom crashing down. So, let's keep our eyes on the prize here, right? Alright, now before we go, just to give you an update, coming up next Sunday in regards to the HUD series here, we're going to be starting to go over the criteria in particular with a focus on the assisted living programs and the programs for the elderly by means through Section 8. What that criteria looks like, what it actually does in regards to assisting us as opposed to what the current government's trying to tell you that it does. Also coming up tomorrow, I will probably, although I can't guarantee it, I'm pretty tired. I've had 2 days of peopling and I really need to hibernate. Donkapon Kingdom is calling my name. It's time to bust out my Nintendo Switch over there. But we're going to do more on the food stamps and what's going on there. And as usual, we'll continue to put out the JRC videos. So, In the meantime, folks, we don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So, if you would please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and folks, please don't forget to hit the comments. I do want to say thank you for your time this Sunday. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. And remember, folks, let's keep our eye on the prize. Let's save the programs we have. We'll worry about World War III should it come. We'll worry about expanding these programs once we get them cemented and as unassailable as is humanly possible to make them. Alright, bye-bye everyone.